Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. We are in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, known as Purushottama Yoga, the Supreme Being. In the last session, we saw that the creation, according to Advaita Vedanta philosophy, is a Vivartavada, meaning it is one appearing as many. Even though the one appears as many, it undergoes no change. And there is no reality of the names and forms which make the universe, really speaking. And therefore, the world has no real beginning or an end, because end means nothing will exist anymore, which is not the case. There is always this reality which is present, and there is no cessation of that. In that Brahman, the absolute, the world is created, it sustains itself, and then it merges back. So this chapter is going to explain the nature of the supreme reality, Purushottama, which is imperishable among the perishable. And that is what is explained in this chapter. Also, we saw, while explaining the nature of this world, it is like an upside down tree, meaning the roots are above, branches are below. Before that, it is also explained that to know the self, one must develop two things. One is a dispassion and another is awareness. Dispassion towards the world, which is an illusory appearance, awareness about that which is permanent. And the world, as it is given here in this chapter, is upside down. The roots are above. It is also known as Ashwatha. Ashwatha, meaning it doesn't stay the same way in the next moment. So the roots are considered as the very sustaining power, Maya, and the supporter of that is Brahman, and branches downward, which is to say all the forms and the names, and the leaves are considered as a protector of that very creation, like the leaves that takes care of the tree. In the same way, the Vedas are those which are protectors of this so-called manifested names and forms. And it is said, he who knows this is truly a wise person. Here, in the human world, the branches that extend downward from human to all even the inert beings, and upward it extends all the way up to Brahma, the creator. And the branches are nourished by the moods of the individual beings, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. And the sprouts and the shoots of the buds are the sense objects. And additional roots are there, which are vasanas. The form remains imperceptible for a common person to watch it or see it. It's a very beautifully imagined nature of this whole creation. And its beginning and then continuation remains unknown. The entire idea is the creation cannot be comprehended really by a human mind. And even as the Vedas talk about it, or the Upanishads talk about it, it is only to explain that coming out of the attachment to the world of names and forms is the only way to freedom. However much attractive it would be, however it is useful. So the goal of life is basically to reach a state of no return. Why it is so? Because though the tree of life is enjoyable in terms of, in the realm of ignorance, but it binds the individual in many, many different ways. Like in the mood of tamas, it brings laziness, negligence, inertness, indulgence, and so on. In the mood of rajas, frenzy of activities with passion, extroverted engagements, binding the individual with the world. In the mood of sattva, it is intellectual pursuits and the form of gaining more knowledge, etc., those things. So we cannot but be continuously engaged in the world because of our identification, strong identification with the mind and its moods. So how to cut it? How to get out of this tree? Discover the sword of discrimination through Shravanam, listening to the teacher. Then sharpen the sword by constant reflection, called Mananam. Understand the impermanence of things. And then cut the tree with the sharpened sword in Nididhyasan, meditation upon the self as one's own true nature. So it is again and again emphasized in Vedanta that listening, reflecting, and meditating. LRM, listen, reflect, meditate. Listen, reflect, meditate. This should go on because what we listen merely by our ears cannot by necessarily will be remembered by us. Many things we listen, but few things we retain. What we retain is those which we think about. If you are eating something and you don't digest it, it will come out. But if you have eaten and then started the process of due digestion with the efficient system in your body, muscles, within your stomach, and then you will not feel heavy, you will not feel unhealthy. In the same way, what is listened must be continuously chewed, reflected on, to think about. Then when one sits for meditation, it is very clear, there is no ambiguity, there is no doubt. One is able to leave off what is known and understood to be unreal and hold on to or abide in what is real. So Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Listening, reflecting, and meditating. This is what is the methodology given to us by the Vedanta Shastra. Now, the goal is to be much more clearly defined. So therefore, in this chapter, further Krishna proceeds. Vedanta's view of liberation is, it is a state of no return, which means there is no rebirth. No return means not coming back to the human condition. It is like when you have written an exam for a 12th grade. What you actually want is you properly graduate and then you go to university. You don't feel like coming back to the school to start again on 12th grade. Once you finish 12th grade, you feel like, done. My schooling is over. Now I'm a university student. Just like a student who had completed 12th grade would not like to come back to the same and then again read again, same thing. In the same way, when do we actually graduate from this world? Only when we have learned our lessons and ready to go beyond that. If we have not learned the lessons, we have to come back. So the liberation is considered as going beyond what has been experienced by us in the world, and it is further explained as where all the results of your actions become null and void. None of the results of your past actions will be valid. Also, merging into the Supreme Being and losing individuality like a river's flow into the ocean. Once they have gone into the ocean, there cannot be a return back to the becoming a river. See, when rain falls from the sky and then when it falls onto the mountains, etc., rivers come down, various streams come down. And many of those things, well, when they have taken enough momentum coming down, they try to reach the ocean, the final destination. But unfortunately, some of them may not be able to reach there because they get into a pond or a lake or even the drainage. Somewhere they get stuck, or in a valley or in a field used for cultivation. So this way, the all water need not be going to the ocean. Some of them get dissipated in the middle, or some of them are stuck in a well or a pond, lake, reservoir. So what happens to that water? Because of the heat of the sun, they again get evaporated to become again the cloud and again the rain. And then they come down again. And if they got a chance to run towards the ocean and reach there, that is called moksha. If they are not able to reach the ocean and get stuck somewhere, that is called rebirth. Again, they have to do this whole cycle again, go back to become rain and then come down the hills, run down the valleys, and then. So this is the case with most of the living beings where they are not able to reach the final destination. They get stuck in between or get sidetracked or diverted somewhere. But Bhagavan, the Lord, is so gracious and compassionate. Like the sun does for the water, it again evaporates and then goes back and comes again as rivers. So liberation is finally merging into this ocean called freedom, the Lord himself. So being one with the universal presence from which the creation continues to manifest. What do you mean by liberation? It is to become one with that absolute reality which constantly manifests itself as the world again and again and again. It is like you take your flashlight and you show into a dark room. Obviously, dark room gets lit by the flashlight and people can see, you can see things what is there. But the same flashlight you take out and then direct it towards the sun, what happens? Your flashlight becomes insignificant in the bright, overwhelming light of the sun. It gets merged as though. In the same way, the individual, so long as he or she is isolated from the reality, living in the darkness, only illuminating few objects nearby. Whereas that very same jiva or the individual, when it takes an effort to go towards the source of light, source of being, merging in that light to become one with the sunlight to illuminate the entire world. That is the idea here. To become merged with this universal presence. So it is the abode of reality where the sun, the moon, and the fire cannot illumine. The sun can illumine everything during the day, and moon can do it during the night, and fire can, where the sun and moon are not available, fire can do it. Fire means any source of light. But this reality which you and I are cannot be natad bhasayate surya. na shashanko na pavakaha yadgatva na nivartante tadhama paramam mama. My abode, Krishna says, is that where sun, moon, the fire cannot illumine. What does it mean? Meaning it is incomprehensible. Sun representing all the sense organs, moon representing the mind, fire representing the intellect. The sense organs cannot illumine me. The moon cannot, the mind cannot illuminate me. The intellect cannot understand me. That is my abode. So this way, Bhagavan points out what is the goal finally to be reached by the individual who is striving. Now, who are qualified to gain this liberation? What is the qualification required for this liberation? First of all, nirmana moha jita sanga doshaha. Nirmana moha. So where the mana and moha, pride and delusion is no more. Because this psychological adjustment as well as intellectual adjustments are required for an individual to go beyond his limitations. See, when I get upset or angry on certain occasions, and then I slowly come to know that there are certain situations or certain happenings that trigger my anger, and I want to be free of anger. If I would like to come out of that, then I need to do certain psychological adjustments. Instead of blaming the world, I have to find out what's wrong with me. Why am I getting upset and angry about certain things or certain people? Just like the physical adjustments will give you physical comfort, psychological adjustments will give mental comfort to you. If you hate a particular person for whatever reason, overcoming that notion that I am upset about this person, I am angry about this person. So you have already conditioned yourself. And the psychological adjustment is where you overcome that condition. In the same way, intellectual conditioning is also there. Spiritual conditioning also there. So what is the intellectual or spiritual conditioning here? Let us take intellectual conditioning. It is about judgments. Your own preconceived notions about things. These are all right and these are all not right, according to me. And so you divide the world into right and wrong. And spiritual conditioning is where it is conditioned by ego, the pride. I'm so and so. I'm important. Everybody should respect me. All should consider me as important. I should be honored. I should be glorified. Wherever I go, people should, honor me. This kind of expectation, which constantly every individual possesses. And in the absence of such kind of a response from the world, we get so miserable. Also, considering that senses and the mind are the only reality, these are all spiritual conditionings. We have to overcome that. So, mana and moha, pride and delusion, overcoming that, and free of association with evil. Jita sanga dosha. Sanga dosha means association with evil. Jita, conquered. Knowingly not engaging in those things which can cause you disturbances. When you are in the company of people who are negative, constantly speaking everything negative about the world, about everything, about people, about situation, about politics, about economics, about business, and in their company, if you are there for some time, you will also become like that. Yata sanga tada chinta. according to your Sangha, so will be your thinking. So therefore, one has to become free of such wrong influences. And then ever devoted to the remain in the awareness of the spiritual self. That's why satsanga is important. So having departed from the association with the evil, one should consciously get associated with the good. Good means not only people, but also sources of correct knowledge, scriptures or study and attending satsanga or listening to what is correct in general. Even in the case of science, there may be so many speculations, but you always want to know what is exactly is the scientific reasoning or conclusion about COVID, for example. I mean, there are so many things. Oh, vaccination is not good. Oh, vaccination kills people, and all sort of things. These are all association with evil. Whereas you go for the real scientific discovery and find out what actually is the nature of the vaccination, how it helps people, then you come to know the right thing, then you will not be bothered about the wrong information that is floating around. In the same way, in our world of people, there are people who constantly talk about the name, fame, money, entertainment, movies, and vacation, and then food, and hotels, and the cruise that they have gone. And there can be 100,000 different ways your mind can engage. Nothing wrong, but don't give them the highest priorities. The priority should be for me to become free of all those influences. And once I become free, I can be in the midst of people who are probably talking about it. Yet I will remain aloof, indifferent, unconcerned, not disturbed. Today we are slave to what is happening around us. We can be easily influenced. And such mind is not ready for liberation then. Free of the influence of dualities. Yes, joy, sorrow, success, failure, pain, and gain, everything will come in our life. To become free of those, meaning free of those means not getting disturbed by those dualities, which are inevitable, unavoidable. Can you avoid the darkness of the night and the brightness of the light day? No. Can you avoid the coolness of the winter and the hot summer? You can't. Can you avoid the pains of the old age? No. Or the pangs of the sickness? No, you can't. So should I get rid of them? This is what Buddha was trying to understand. These sorrows in life, in the form of poverty, old age, death, loss, can I avoid? He went on and questioning himself alone, independently. Upon his own independent inquiry, he came to realize that sorrows in life cannot be avoided. Then he said, suffering is optional. Because suffering is when you become helpless about it. So when you become victim of a situation, then suffering is unavoidable. When you become witness of a situation, you become free of that suffering. From the victim to witness. That is called knowledge. So, who is an individual? Now, the next topic that is taken up by Krishna is, who is a jiva? You and I. Who are we? Why are we what we are? Individual entities. I am not you, you are not me. I am a human, is not animal, animal is not a bird, bird is not an insect, insect is not a tree. Every living being is referred as jiva. Jivati iti jiva. One which has a life, which is a living being. Now, from the standpoint of Vedanta, an individual is not an individual, but he assumes it to be so. Like if I have a large quantity of clay, and out of that clay, I make some 10 pots. I'm a potter. So I make 10 pots out of that large amount of clay which I had. So 10 pots are sitting in front of me. When I look at all the 10 pots, I know that pot A is different from pot B is different from pot C, etc. A doesn't look like B, B doesn't look like C, C doesn't look like D. So all different sizes and shapes of the pots. Now I realize that even though they are all looking different from each other because of their forms, their shapes, etc., and can be called, one is called pitcher, another is called a plate, another is a pot, it is called small pot or a bigger pot, according to the shape. But don't I know that just before I created all these things, they were one en masse, a shapeless, formless clay, nameless clay. It's just clay. So from the nameless, formless clay means does not have any particular shape, shapeless clay, I made all the shapes and call it differently. Now, even as I'm calling them differently as a pitcher or the mug, pot, vase, plate, even though I call all of them, I know in my mind, from in and through, they are only clay. In the same way, even though as we perceive various names and forms, varieties of species, essential nature of all of them is one and the same. So the reflection of pure consciousness eternally retaining the same nature in the living world appears to be having various forms, and according to various forms, various names. What is there is the consciousness reflected in various different ways. And sitting, in the form as though it draws the matter through 5 senses: sound, touch, vision, taste, smell, and through the mind, the 6th. It is our own personal experience that we have these faculties of hearing, sound, ears, faculty of touch, skin, faculty of seeing, eyes, faculty of taste, the tongue, faculty of smell, nose. And even as these 5 different experiences are drawn from the world, or the mind, which is the 6th one, is the one which decides which one to pursue and which one not to pursue. When you go to a restaurant, there are varieties of food is available to you. You choose what you want to eat. Though everything is for eating only, but you don't choose everything to eat. Go to the menu, look at what you want on the day. If you're not too hungry, you go for a lighter food. If you are very hungry, intensely hungry, then you go for a heavy food. Food is there available. In the same way, world is there filled with names and forms. You and I, as individual consciousness, we get drawn to the matter through the 5 sense organs and the mind. And that one consciousness getting drawn into the experience of the world of matter is called a jiva. Because he is living through the physical body. The consciousness now experiencing the world through this body. Whichever be the body, is a human body or a bird's body or an animal's body. So the self gets as if conditioned by the contacts with the sense objects. As if, it's not really, but it apparently looks as though. It is like a person who has gone to the state of dream gets conditioned by what is happening in the dream. Though The other person who is looking at him knows that he is just sleeping, lying down there. But the one who is gone into the state of experience called dream is getting conditioned by the experience that is taking place there. So at the same time, the one who is getting conditioned by the dream experience is going through that, while at the same time, the one who is looking at it from outside, what does he think about him? Oh, he's peacefully sleeping. Very quietly, peacefully sleeping. So from the onlooker standpoint, the person is sleeping peacefully. From that person's standpoint, he's suffering through the experience of the dream. Isn't it? Same time. Are there two things happening here? No. Think. So who are you at this point? Are you the dreamer who is suffering through the experiences, or you are the peaceful person who is lying down on your bed quietly? Which one is you? Which one do you think you are? Really? Are you the dreamer who is suffering, or the waker who is peacefully lying down there? Now, any answer would be questionable. When you say, I am the dreamer who is conditioned, that means you are not the one who is sleeping there. No, I am the one who is lying down quietly and sleeping. Then you are not experiencing the dream. The actual way of analyzing this is, really speaking, you are a peacefully lying down waker only, as though suffering the experiences of the dream. Why as though? Because it ends. When it ends, you come back to the original sleeping person. So if it had really happened, you cannot come back. If it had not happened, you would not experience it. So it is happening in a limited fashion for only you, and therefore it is as though conditioned. Similarly, the self is as if conditioned by the contacts of the world of objects, is the sufferer, jiva. This conditioned state is the individual. So, experience of the world is decided by the senses and the mind. Because if the eyes are closed, then the forms and colors and shapes won't be known. The mind would not know it without the help of the eyes. Similarly, the sound cannot be heard and understood if my mind is not available, or my ears are closed, or my attention is somewhere else. So the mind, what happens is it retains the memory of those experiences which it had got through the senses. And mind with the memory of experiences repeats the interaction again and again and again and again. So our life is pretty much programmed, so to say, by what? By what we have experienced. What we have experienced again and again repeats. See, that is why when we go to a new place, a new culture, a new country, totally different from what you have seen so far, there is an excitement, is it not? An enthusiastic excitement. Wow, see this building. Wow, see this landscape. Wow, see this beautiful scenery. Oh, see the beauty of the mountains, the ocean, the greenery, the people, the food. Why that excitement? Because it was not experienced by you before. The same place you go the second time, you will not have an experience. I've seen it. Last time it is better, actually. So immediately you refer to the previous experience. So the present state of experience is decided by a similar or same experiences you had before. And if what was enjoyable the first time or the previous time when you have experienced was something gave a pleasure, you would like to derive the same pleasure right now again, which will not happen. Why? Because the past influences the present. But because we have no other option to gain joy, we keep repeating pleasurable experiences again and again and again and again and again. That is what is called life. Day in and day out, we keep repeating the same thing. Same breakfast, lunch, and dinner. What else? Sleep, get up, work. And during the weekend, relax. Maybe go for a movie or go for some sports event or go for hiking or go for something else, entertainment. Again, come back Monday, again, start the same. And that is the life all of us go through. So repeated experience result in deepening the impressions called vasanas. You go on experiencing the same thing over and over again, it becomes a deep-rooted impression. And the self, the pure consciousness, is forgotten due to the overwhelming presence of vasanas, demanding more and more experiences of the matter. This is the nature of the jiva. Jiva is constantly engaged in deriving short-term pleasures from the matter dictated by the vasanas, which were originally created and deepened by repeated experiences of the same thing. And that's what we are, you and I, jivas. Even though my original nature is not what is pure consciousness. Mamai vamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. Jiva bhuta sanatana. I am the eternal. You are essentially the eternal pure consciousness only to start with. But because of the association with the matter through the senses and the mind, and the sense organs, mind wanting to experience again and again the pleasures of the matter, it gets caught up in a whirlpool of vasanas and never able to come out of it. All right, understood. This is the nature of jiva. Then what? Death. Next one is death, because how long you can live in this body, because it also gets old. It's like any machinery, you can use it for some time. After some time, it becomes outdated. It stops functioning. Everything slowly, gets weakened. No more efficient like before. So there are two things that makes this physical body useless to us. One, it gets old. No doubt about that. As even you are using it, it gets old. Now, second thing is, which is very strange, is new experiences requiring new kind of senses are not available in this present body. It's like, I want a 4K picture in my camera. But your camera, phone camera, your phone is only, iPhone 6. iPhone 6, no, iPhone 12 or 13 is coming, most powerful cameras and most powerful this and that. And with iPhone 4, iPhone, that one, what picture you deserve so dull and See, the thing is, the world is the same. But your iPhone or the camera which you have been using, that was an outdated, old technology. So you are not able to capture the picture of the world, whatever scenery, as efficiently as it would in the new model. The world has not changed. The beauty of the sunrise and sunset has not changed. From the time of creation onwards till today, it is the same. but the equipment through which we are looking at has become old. So therefore, an individual, and there are certain new experiences for which also you need new different faculty or efficiency. You might know that many of the software would not work in the old Microsoft Windows, old version. They demand a new version. In the same way, new version of you is expected. So from this present condition, we need to slowly give up this body, this equipment, this outdated technology to go to the new one. And it naturally happens. You don't need to do anything. You will get old and die. But you don't need to strive anything for that. You do not put effort at all. It happens. And what is happening there at the time of death? The subtle body, which is a seat of impressions created by repeated experiences of the senses, etc., that subtle body leaves the gross body with the help of the prana. That's why they say pran chal gaya. The person's life is gone. So actually speaking, it is a subtle body leaving the gross body. So when you say death or leaving, what does that mean? Subtle body includes all sense faculties and the inner instruments, mana, buddhi, ahankara, and chitta. So mind, intellect, memory, and ego. Mana, buddhi, chitta, and ahankara. And leaving means withdrawal. That is carrying the fragrance of the personality away from the gross form. Like the breeze carrying the fragrance of a flower. You cannot see it. The flower may be outside in the garden, but you will be able to smell it inside the room. How? Because the fragrance is being carried by the air and entering into your room and slowly coming closer to your nose. So you know, rose flowers. Where? Out there in the garden. Yes. Just like the air that connects your nose with the flowers smell, which is yonder there, in the same way, vasanas are being carried without being noticed. Subtle body cannot be noticed and it moves away from the gross body. So leaving means withdrawal and carrying all the impressions. So the impressions without much details are taken to the next manifestation in another gross body. It is similar to the memory of a dream experience. If I ask you, what was your dream on Sunday, first Sunday of July? So I don't remember what was the first Sunday of the July month. Which July? 2010. Further worse. So some of the dream experiences are very intense. You may remember. Not all that you remember, but you remember. Even those which you remember as your experience of dream sometime back, you may not know the details of the dream. You may only know few things about it. If somebody says that, yesterday, Swamiji, I was running and running. I was doing marathon. I was running. Oh, is it? Yes. Oh, what color shorts you were wearing? I don't know. I think I was wearing something. I don't remember what it is. See, details are not known. So you ran for 14 miles? Yes, Swamiji, 14 miles I ran. Oh, who was behind you? Or who was next to you? How many times you drank water? See, even though you might have experienced the dream as though real, but details are not there. Why? Because your attention is not in those details. So, vasanas are those which are no doubt the impressions of the past. Only the intense impressions are there, not the details. like that of the dream. And these impressions, which are procured during the lifetime, is taken to the next body. There is a certain amount of vagueness about the content of the vasanas, but the intensity is all the same, is there. You may say, last time when I came here into this restaurant, I had one cup of coffee, so good. It was very nice. Oh, what is the color of the cup? Color of the cup, some cup was there. I don't remember what is the color of it, but the coffee was good. So if you have drank the coffee, you must have looked at the cup also. I don't remember the cup, but the coffee was good. In the same way, when a person leaves, and a jiva leaves the physical body and goes to the next one, that is called death. It only carries the important information that it is paid attention. So the rebirth is a conducive new gross form, which is assumed as per the impression stored in the subtle body. So rebirth is not decided by somebody. This rebirth is decided by your vasanas, what they need. As Gurudev used to say, if you are going for swimming, you cannot go with your suit and coat, right? You need to change your clothes to a swimsuit and then you go there. If you go for running, obviously you are not wearing the regular shoes. You are to wear the canvas or the walking shoe or a trekking shoe, etc. So that is running shoe may be separately there. So why are you doing that? Because that is what is required for you to go through that particular experience. In the same way, the impressions that wanting to get repeated again and again in the next birth must assume the appropriate gross body. So as the subtle body takes up the new gross form, it continues to experience object through the senses and the mind as before, as it is done before. And it might have added new things over a period of time. And the new equipments, the young body of the young child is very alert as it grows up to become an adult or a young man. The faculties are very well developed. And the vasanas can start expressing. That's why in a smaller, younger child, which is just 1 or 2 year old, you don't see the expression of vasanas as intensely as it would be in a teenager. That's why you wonder, where did he get all these things from? Nothing. It is coming from previous birth. Until then, the faculties were not developed enough to express it. Now he has got all this sensor. Everything is very well robust. And now the expression starts. It was all stored before, not coming out. Thus, therefore, death is the departure of the subtle body from the gross body, taking all the impressions that it has gathered in the previous birth, in that life, and then like the air taking away the smell of the flower, which cannot be perceived. Similarly, the subtle body takes the impressions and goes to the new body, and the new body is decided by the nature of vasanas, what it wants to experience. And this goes on. In this new birth also, it gathers new impressions, and the old impressions getting slowly renewed, not exhausted, renewed. The new impressions are added, then another birth, then another birth, then another birth. Now, what is the vision of the men of wisdom? How do they look at this whole thing? And how do they become free of it? The continuous cycle of birth and death is considered as samsara, bondage. The men of wisdom developed the vision, how to look at things. It's not a magic, it's not a miracle. You cannot say it's, especially some of the people are graced by the Lord and therefore they have got this vision, others don't. No. It is intelligent living. So the vision of Vedanta is to recognize the presence of the eternal self even when one is leaving the body. Meaning, while leaving the body, a man of wisdom knows that only the gross body is left behind. The subtle body is not. The gross body, which was used and exhausted, it has become old, that is being left down there. The subtle body is still there. That means what? The journey continues. I'm not ended. I just made a departure from one place to another. As Gurudev writes in his commentary, it is like a person who is transferred to another city from this particular city where he was living for quite some time. He has been transferred to another city. What he would do, he will gather all the things from his house and office, put it in a truck, drive to the other city, and then going there, open up everything and set up again. He might have left the previous city, but he is not lost. He is in another place. So one who has the right knowledge would say, even though I'm leaving the physical body, but only the gross body is left behind. Second, while residing in the body, he knows that I am a resident, not the owner. I'm residing in the body. I'm operating through this body. I'm dwelling in the body. Not I am the body. They're dwelling as a resident, like living in a house. And while experiencing the objects, engaging in sensory pursuits, and he knows that it is, I'm engaging all right, but that is not merely, that is not to be considered as a permanent experience. It is only a temporary experience through the senses. And associated with the mind's qualities, being independent and aware of the sattvic, rajasic, tamasic moods of the mind. He's watchful of that and aware. These are all the moods of the mind, and according to the moods of the mind, so will be the experience of the mind. So in the absence of this knowledge, one continues to get disturbed and agitated. See the difference between a wise and otherwise. In the case of a wise person, he leaving the body, he knows that I am the self associated with subtle body, leaving the gross body. While remaining in the body also, I am only a resident, not the owner. I am not the body. While experiencing, he knows the sensory pursuits, our senses are engaging in this world. And association with the qualities of the mind, he knows the moods of the mind. He is fully aware of that. That according to the mood, so will be the experience. But in the absence of this knowledge, when a person leaves the body, they think that one will be no more. Chalo, humko chodna hai. And I am going to leave all of you. Oh, all of you will be not there. I will be gone. I cannot see you anymore. So because of the attachment, one feels so miserable. One feels that one is no more there. Will be lost in nothingness. And while residing in the body also, feeling that oneself as the body and worrying about getting old, getting sick, getting weak. I'm getting weak. I'm getting old. What to do? What to do? That's all what is going to happen, whether you like it or not. Understand that is not you. And while experiencing the object, indulgence, in the sense of with the hope that permanent joy will come out of it. This is the thinking of a man who does not have the correct understanding. Associated with the mind's qualities, being dependent on them and suffering the moods of the mind as they constantly fluctuate. Utkramantam stitam vapi bunchanam va gunanvidam vimudhananu pashyanti jnana chakshusha. Jnana chakshusha pashyanti. Men of wisdom who have the right knowledge, they see it very clearly. Others don't. So Gurudev beautifully puts that it's a smart seekers to realize the ever-present diligently engage in self-mastery. Others, those striving, do not realize it due to absence of self-control. How much ever you put an effort to understand this, if you do not intelligently apply your knowledge. Smart seekers are those who want to realize it, diligently apply for self-mastery. Without the senses and the mind under control, realization of the self is not possible. While indulging and engaging in the world and at the same time trying to realize absolute truth is not possible. So Gurudev says, those who are successful in their attempts at stilling their mind and cleaning their intellect of its disturbing attachments and desires come to recognize the glory of the self and experience its infinite beatitude. Mental purity and intellectual detachment. That these two are the self-mastery, having gained which one will come to know the presence of the eternal self all the time, while leaving the body, while residing in the body, while engaging in this world. Etato pihapikonteya purushasya vivastita said in the Kathopanishads also. If one does not self-control, the mind and the senses are going wild like wild horses, will never be able to reach any destination. So this chapter continues to inspire us, giving a lot of pointers. We'll see more of it in the next session. Om sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkhabad bhavet. Om shanti shanti shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.